Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at the crises we have today in science. Indeed, science is the dogma of our time. Not only do we have a crisis in science, but we have a crisis in repeatability, we have a crisis in fraud, we have a crisis in publication, we have a crisis in peer review. It all starts with the crises in repeatability. The foundation of all science is it has to be repeatable, and yet we've done a study just recently, a study, where they showed that half the people could not replicate their original experiment. And when tried to do that with someone else, only 1 out of 3 could duplicate it or replicate it. There's a crisis of repeatability because it's based on a crisis of fraud. These guys are lying, pure and simple. Why? Because of the crises of publication. Some of these guys are so pressured, they got to have 3 new papers every year. If you want to have any kind of career at all, you got to put out 3 new papers every year. The pressure's on them to come up with these papers. And the only way they can do it is by lying, with fraud. And then it's published in these peer-reviewed journals. What a joke. I'm reviewed by other fools that have been fooled and tricked, so we can fool and trick everyone else. We have to understand there's a very small group of people who own and control every major sector of human endeavor. That includes our educational systems. So that means our experts in health and nutrition and history and philosophy and religion, you name it, science. They're all being controlled to make sure that we stay where we are. That's what the status quo wants. The status quo has to control our so-called experts to make sure the status quo remains the status quo. And what I'm referring to is that very small group of people who are behind everything. If you don't understand what I'm saying, watch the Thrive documentary. Foster Gamble, part of the Procter & Gamble company, the elderly son was supposed to take over the enterprise. #1 advertiser on American TV is Procter & Gamble. Foster found out what's going on, and he spent all of his inheritance. Took him about 8 years to produce the Thrive documentary. Watch it. Don't waste your time watching 45 minutes about the Taurus. That's not really that important. But what he says is they investigated 12 major sectors of human endeavor. They followed the money. And behind every area, there's a small group that own everything. There's even a group of mathematicians in Switzerland that came up with a program, and they found that there's these interlocking directorates, that behind every transnational company there are these board of directors that run and control everything. And they don't want us to know how to live. It's the most important thing they have to maintain in order to keep the status quo the status quo. We can't figure out how to live. That means the truth about how to live is going to be attacked. There are going to be all these bogus versions. And of course, the main thing I'm talking about is nutrition. Look how much confusion there is in nutrition. How can there be so much confusion in nutrition? Because the psychopaths are literally running the asylum. Our so-called experts, when they go to school to study nutrition, they don't know anything. They're not taught anything. They look at things from a pathology point of view. Our disease treaters, they're totally clueless. They're told to head east, look for a sunset. Guilty of modus ponens, putting the cart before the horse for a problem that's 100% within their control. When nutritionists don't study the elimination cycle, consumption, absorption, elimination, and nutritionists don't study, or doctors don't study the lymph system, a bunch of cells, 2 fluids, kitchen and the bathroom. Doctors don't study the bathroom, just like the nutritionists don't study the elimination system. And as a result, they're totally clueless. So, Herbert Shelton understood the greatest obstacle we have in living reform and helping people learn how to live is not so much ignorance, which we got a lot of it, it's the powers that be. Even in the book, the Essene Teachings from Enoch to the Dead Sea Scrolls, Moses points out he had 2 obstacles, same ones Shelton pointed out. Can't help but wonder if he'd read that book. Moses says it was the ignorant masses and the arrogant rulers. The powers that be that control everything. So we end up believing that science has an answer. If you're going to wait for a scientific study to prove something's true or false, don't hold your breath. Now, we can't just throw all science out with the bathwater of corruption now, can we? Of course not. Obviously, there are going to be some scientific studies that will be worth something. But how do we know what to choose? As far as I'm concerned, let's just throw it all out. Use your common sense. Do what Aristotle will say. Believe only your own experience. There is no fact like a fact learned from your own life. I love it when I get to coach someone close to my age and they've got lots of problems. When they take a solid food vacation, the transformation they go through is amazing. Amazing. Even younger people, most of you guys go through amazing transformations too. Now, when I did this, I didn't have any health problems. So I didn't see any miraculous cures, except I did have a nail that was damaged. 80-90% of my thumbnail was slammed in a car door. I remember looking down on my thumb on day 42 or day 43, something like that. And I go, wow, my thumbnail's finally healing. Of course, I also had diverticulosis. That healed, but I didn't know I had that condition. And I didn't have diverticulitis, so I didn't have the pain that would come with it. But the transformation we go through is amazing. You can be your own scientist. All you have to do is record. That's what it is. It's all about simple observation. And remember, science itself has never been studied scientifically. Science 100 years ago is not the same today. It's always changing, and it's all bunk right now. And I know because I have the ultimate degree in science. I have the only degree that doesn't come with prejudice. I have the only degree that wasn't put in a box that I couldn't get out of. And it's allowed me to be a self-employed scientist. And those are the only scientists you can really trust. Someone who's self-employed, who isn't paid to find something for someone else. Never forget when I started writing a book on weight loss. And I found this other library of knowledge. Most valuable knowledge in the world, more important than biology, chemistry, pharmakeia, physics, quantum physics, anything. It's about how to live. I remember when I found that knowledge, I was already documenting everything. I'm a scientist. I've recorded everything I've eaten for 32 years. I've studied things most people never even think of studying. And why would I go to the trouble? Because I found the most valuable knowledge in the world. I found the knowledge we're missing. It's how to live. And of course, the problem that we have is all I found was our species-specific diet, which works in an ideal world, but doesn't always work for everyone in a less than ideal world, and that's what we have. Things have changed. We've damaged the environment, we've damaged ourselves, we've damaged society. What worked long ago works for some now, but might not work for everyone else. So you can't blame our species-specific diet for it not working for you, and yet we see that all the time. You always hear people saying, oh, I did it and it didn't work. And you never get enough information. Never, ever once do you get enough information from one person to know if that was the reason why it didn't work. Food's not a panacea. A solid food vacation is not a panacea. It only addresses one of our 12 essential needs. You might not be sleeping right. You might be all screwed up in your head, thinking all sorts of crazy thoughts. I don't know what's going on with you. No one else knows what's going on with these other people who don't seem to do it. Keeping in mind, the main reason that people struggle is that other group of needs. 12 essential, 2 additional temporary needs. One of them are these subsequent causes that don't go away just because we remove the primary causes. You may still be damaged somehow. Your adrenals might not be working. Your digestive system might not be working. You may be overly stressed. You might not be sleeping. You're not getting any sunshine. There's a myriad of reasons why just changing your diet might not work for some people. Because you got to satisfy all your needs. So believe only your own experience. Don't rely on science to come along and save the day. Remember, this is the raw food hero's journey. No one else is going to come along and solve your problems because most of your problems are self-inflicted. And that's the definition of a hero, isn't it? A person who can solve a problem or problems no one else can solve. Well, if most of our problems are self-inflicted, who are the heroes? We are the heroes. It isn't science. It isn't some YouTuber that has never done anything, studied anything, and is just sharing what's happening to them. It's someone who has extensive research in this field, who's coached thousands of people. I've seen how this transforms people's lives, and that's why I get excited every day to wake up and work on gathering more knowledge, trying to figure out a clever way to wake you guys up And I realize most people aren't ready for this message. Only a handful of people, small percentage of us, are going to be the trim tabs to society that can turn our ship away from that iceberg. Got to be the rudder on the rudder to make sure the herd doesn't run off the cliff. And if you're in the middle of that herd, you can't break away from the herd. That's where most people are. You got to be on the edges of the herd so you can jump off and go the other way. As soon as we realize we go the other way that most people are going, we're going to be much better off. How's that quote by Mark Twain go? Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And then if you can do that and ask yourself, how can I change my life? You've got the answer. It's a solid food vacation. Because when you do it, you're in for a treat.